Hey everybody, how's it going? Andrew here, and I just wanted to take a quick moment to give a shout out to, well, you guys being great listeners. I mean, the support that we've seen from many of you has been great. The numbers in themselves in terms of downloads of episodes is a clear indication of that too. So really wanted to take a moment and say thank you. And another way to kind of like show that as well, we're really would love for some of you, if you're interested, that is, to be future guests on the show. Right now, if you would like and are interested, you can go to rengenmarketing.com/IGM My Story. And what we're looking to do is if you have a marketing or business related story with your game, even if it's like similar along the lines of some of the discussions we've had on the show already or not, we'd love to hear from you and to have you be a potential guest and to share that with the rest of the community. It provides a great opportunity to kind of get your name out there a little bit more, but more importantly, to share your story, your findings, your learnings with the rest of the community. So if you think you would be a good fit for that, by all means, reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. And it'd be just another great way to help contribute to the rest of the community. So again, that link is rengenmarketing.com/IGM My Story. It's all one word. Go there, check it out. If you think this is something that's right for you and you would love to contribute, by all means, don't hesitate. All right, that's all I have. Thanks again for being such great listeners. And now let's get right to the show. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Indie Game Movement, the podcast that talks about the marketing and business of indie games. I'm Andrew Pappas. I'm going to be one of your hosts today, along with Mustafa Price, as we have a great guest lined up for episode 133. And we're going to be talking about how to stand out in a digital landscape. Now, since the pandemic has forced many to rely on digital events and other online formats and means of communication, in a lot of ways the indie game industry was already there. Now, some new trends have emerged, but it still goes to show that knowing how to stand out in this digital landscape is extremely important. That's why our guest today is going to share their experience and insight on how to navigate this landscape, what to expect, and what you always need to do to stand out to others, regardless of what the future has in store. So that's what we're going to be talking about right here today on Indie Game Movement. Hey, everybody, and we're back, and I have Mustafa here with me. Mustafa, how's it going?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic. Weather's really nice today, so not much more I can ask for.
It is gorgeous here today, and but more importantly, we have an awesome guest. His name is Chris Wulf from Those Awesome Guys. And Chris, we have to ask, how is the weather where you are from?
Well, thanks for having me, first of all. Honestly, the weather for the first time in like a month today has been, well, less pleasant. Let's put it that way.
Okay. But you had a good streak going of some really pleasant weather, it sounds like.
Fantastic. Yeah, just like a month basically straight with just 30 plus degrees Celsius.
Wow. That's gorgeous. It sounds like. So cool. Well, I think we're having about that right now. So I'm glad that for the most part, we're all faring well in terms of the weather. But we're not here to talk about the weather. We're here to talk about some very interesting things. But before we do that, let's just, talk a little bit about Chris in terms of what he does. So he's a publishing director with Those Awesome Guys. It's an independent developer and publisher hybrid. And right now, they're the developer behind Move or Die, but also they're the publisher of Monster Prom and Floppy Nights. But besides that, Chris is also an active judge. He's a curator, event organizer throughout various events within the games industry. So Chris has totally done a lot in the whole indie game space. But, Chris, I know that was kind of a basic intro there, but I would love for you to kind of fill in some blanks, provide a little bit more information about what you're doing, what's kind of like top of mind for you right now, and also some things that you do in your personal life when you're not dealing with games.
Absolutely. So for TAC, we're currently sort of in between releases. We worked and developed Move or Die. We published Monster Prom, and now leading up to the launch of Floppy Nights in a couple of months, we're in a spot where we're just willing and interested in trying new things out. So I've been a big proponent of a more sort of global approach when it comes to publishing. That includes obviously like tapping into local markets through storefronts and distributors, but also very much on the localization side. So localization, culturalization has been at the very forefront of my mind for the last couple of months. Plus, and I know that anyone that follows me on Twitter will be very annoyed at this point by me mentioning it all the time. TikTok as a marketing platform, I find fascinating. So that's been a fun topic for me over this quarantine for the past 6 months. I've been looking into further. Besides that, like in my free time, usually what I tend to do is, I know it's like the super boring answer that you get like starting in high school, kindergarten, just hang out with friends. I tend to really enjoy organize small little meetups and events here in Munich, Germany, where I'm based off at the moment, or well, when it's possible outside of a global pandemic, of course. And I'm generally always on the run when it comes to when it comes to, again, a regular year. I really enjoy sort of reinvesting whatever I make in terms of income every year into just travel, meeting new games communities around the globe, visiting B2B and B2C events, visiting developers, and so on. So that's been the biggest thing I've been missing so far this year, but I'm looking forward to returning to that eventually.
Yeah, that's awesome too, to have pretty much that aspiration and following through with it in terms of really getting out there, doing a lot of things, and solely just to kind of like meet new people and intermingle. And yes, it's obviously been a challenge as of recently, but good that's always been kind of your forefront. You've been doing it, and you'll continue to do it even after all this. Awesome, man. Good to hear. All right, so we got to know a little bit about Chris, but now we're going to go one step further, and that's going to take us to the Q-Box round. And for those of you who aren't familiar, Q-Box round is a series of random questions that we're going to be asking Chris, so you guys can kind of get to know him a little bit better. So, Chris, are you ready for the Q-Box round?
Let's do it.
All right. Crayons, colored pencils, or Sharpies?
Sharpie, definitely, all the way.
Okay. What is one of your most memorable moments while attending an event?
Oh, narrowing that down to one moment, I guess meeting some of the people I look up to in this industry and actually getting connected to them. Shio Yoshida, Chris Charla, just phenomenal people that have had massive influence on me.
Wow, that was an amazing job of narrowing that down. Good job. One country you always wanted to visit?
China, for the games industry and due to its power, not due to the political spectrum.
Okay. Good declaration of that. Biggest gaming pet peeve?
When people are super hardcore fans about their games or platforms and can't accept other opinions.
Favorite book?
Not a fan.
Oh, sorry.
Aragon.
Oh, okay, cool. And we ask this everybody now. It's a standard. What game or games are you playing right now?
Of course, Fall Guys.
Right? That's the new one.
I'm telling you, Andrew, you got to get on board. Everybody's with the wave.
You know,
it's so good.
I can never get on board. You know, when I get on board with most stuff, it's like sadly like years later. So, but anyways.
I get that. I feel you. Sometimes it's more pleasant that way. Like you don't have the exhaustion of hearing about the game everywhere across social media. You just get to enjoy it on your own and sort of revisit that experience a couple of years later.
Yeah,
and the speed hackers will surely be gone by then.
Yeah,
so
that's true. There's that, and I'm like that with just about everything, like shows and stuff too, because it's some shows. Sometimes it's nice to be part of the community when they're live at that moment. You're just anticipating and waiting and all that stuff. But sometimes it's nice just to binge too. But yeah. Okay, so Chris, thank you so much for those questions or answering the questions, and I mean some really cool stuff in there too. So yeah, it was great, and of course, like you and everybody else, playing Fall Guys, which is awesome. All right. So now that we have that covered, we're going to take this into the meat of the discussion. And today's topic, as I mentioned early in the intro, is how to stand out in a digital landscape. And, before I go into it anymore, Musaf, I think you have a pretty good way to kind of kick off this discussion. So I'll let you take it from there.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So as I'm sure you're well aware, kind of following PAX East this year, just about every event transitioned to kind of a fully digital format. It's of course been forced by current circumstances and things like that. But in a lot of ways, indie games in particular were already kind of trending in that direction. So bearing that information in mind and kind of seeing how these events have transitioned digital, how do you feel about this change? And do you think it's the kind of thing we're going to see kind of lasting beyond current circumstances?
I generally like to separate between the consumer or player events and the business events. On the business side, especially, we've seen at this point probably hundreds of events since the end of February, early March. And while I've attended probably the majority of them, I'm a little bit, my opinion is a little bit split about them. There are some really good ones that stand out, and then there is a pool of let's say 70% of digital B2B events that sort of feel like they're the same. They have some type of matchmaking component. They have sort of the same group of people hosting talks. They are usually 2 to 3 days long, free for publishers. Developers have to pay, have like an award connected to it, and then maybe a couple of other features beyond that, but nothing really that makes them stand out. And oftentimes these events are also sort of focused around like a global audience, therefore having like a 24/7 track or 24/7 matchmaking opportunities. And I personally don't feel like those events are going to have a huge chance to stand out in the future, just because it's sort of the basic concept. It's what everyone is doing. It's what everyone can be doing and pulling off on their own. So I like to focus on the ones that are doing something special. And for me, those B2B events, the digital ones that really have been valuable to me, and I think also valuable to developers and other people in this industry, are the ones that are more locally focused. So as a recent example, the what's it called? The state of Tuscany, I believe, in Italy, put together a matchmaking event that was specifically focused around Italian developers, more specifically with a stronger focus on local developers from Tuscany. And that was one of the more valuable experiences, since I probably in no circumstance would have ended up with such a strong focus on just a local group of developers at any given time. And I took a lot away from that event. In a similar fashion, the Canadian government has been great at providing such opportunities, the German government as well, and some other like matchmaking tools such as Meet to Match have been partnering up with local partners, especially around the Southeast Asian region, on pulling off these types of events. And those are super valuable, and I don't see those going away, because it opens up so many doors to developers that don't necessarily have the opportunity to go to a GDC or a PAX due to either financial constraints or visa constraints, especially these days. And I'd love for those events to stick around. Anything that's more on the overall generic side, without wanting to sound really really aggressive or condescending about it, because I know like pulling off any event is a massive amount of work. Right. I'm not sure they will be able to stand for like years to come necessarily, especially once the opportunity opens up again to be at physical events.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense too, because like, and not only that, I would say too, with what you're saying with the more generic ones, it's a big, huge dynamic shift that it has occurred. And while it might serve as, I guess, another, I'm trying to think of the right word here, another means to kind of open it up or whatever, like the sole focus and what those things kind of represent are how they've always been established or whatever. And if it is going to take any significant type of change, like it has, like pretty quickly, I think a lot of time would have to come where there's a lot more adaptation that leads to that. And still, I think like what you're saying, it probably isn't going to be that lasting or whatever. At least that would be my perspective of it, in terms of, because of such a dynamic shift, it's not going to have the same impact as the more smaller local ones that you were just talking about, in terms of how the types of opportunities that present themselves and stuff.
Yeah, and I would even piggyback on that to say too, like I appreciate that you kind of made the distinction of